Thank you so much. So my name is Hannah. I'm the president of the Accounting Association this year. I'm going to be co-hosting this event with my peer, Chris.
Hello, and my name is Christopher Gisoni. It's a pleasure to be here, and panelists, thank you so much for coming once again. It's a pleasure to have you. And yeah, let's get into it, and it should be a great time. We're going to go through a bunch of different events here, a bunch of different things we're going to discuss. The agenda is right here. We're going to have some opening statements, and then right after this, for about 5 minutes each, we're going to have the CPA and the CFA ambassadors discuss everything CPA, as well as just what, everything regarding that and how they're involved with the associations. And then we're going to discuss the guest speakers, who they are, and then we're just going to have the panel session. It's going to be a nice panel session. I'm really excited. I'm going to learn myself, which is going to be great. And then we're going to save all the questions for the question and answer period with all the students to get a further understanding and just to, get more out of the panelists here, and then ending remarks to end off the event. So on that note too, we also have a giveaway for attending the event. So to really get in, you already are in. If you are attending the event, then you have a chance to win 2 Lecterm hardcover notebooks, as well as 2 $10 Starbucks gift cards. So you guys are already doing great on that front. There's a pretty good odds to win here, so hopefully it's you. And yeah, once again, thank you so much for coming. And we are going to get into the pay talk. Oh, sorry, this association talk.
All right, lovely. So it is a collaborative event with the OTAA and the OTFA. So I'm sure for the accounting students who have attended our events before, you've seen this slide in the past, but for those who haven't, the Ontario Tech Accounting Association is the point of contact between the accounting profession and the students here at Ontario Tech, as well as Durham College. So we do have some upcoming events for those who might be interested. We have our GDIP information session on December 3rd at 8 p.m. So if you're unsure about what the GDIP program is, feel free to come. We'll have faculty there answering a bunch of your questions. And then we will be having some study sessions for exam time, which is right around the corner. So if you need anything at all, sorry, I'm just going to mute the people who weren't muted. So if you have anything at all that you need, feel free to follow us on socials, and I'll pass it off. And of course, like always, thank you to our sponsors who have attended tonight and for our events. So CP Ontario, Baker Tilly, Part-Time CFO, BDO, KPMG, BitSoc, and the Ontario Tech Student Union.
So now I'm going to discuss the Ontario Tech Finance Association. So just like the Accounting Association, we aim to bridge the gap between academia and the workplace while making a medium for our business and our IT students to be able to network with companies, with other students, with upper year students, just to get the edge on whatever it is they're trying to do with their goals. So we have upcoming events with internal and external events. So some we have coming up, we have exam study sessions as well in the first week of December. We also, next semester and next year, we have an investment night and an alumni night planned with the months stated on screen here. We also have some external events that are not listed that you can see on our socials, which are the Battle on Bay competition. We just executed the Rotman portfolio competition, which we're really excited about, as well as some other CFA ones that have also came and went as well. And then we also have our socials on the bottom right there on the screen, so you can hit us up on those socials and interact. We're pretty quick with getting back on you, so any questions, any concerns, anything you would just generally like to know, we're pretty active on those, and we'll get right back to you. And we love discussing with students because that's essentially what the club is for, right? So yeah, that's basically what we're all about.
All right, so to start off the evening, we're going to be having a really quick presentation from our CPA ambassadors. So I know the CPA process can seem very strange and you might not know how to navigate it. So Ilsa and Kyle are ambassadors this year, and they're here to answer any questions you have about the CPA program. So I'm going to pass it off to Kyle, who's just going to give us a little tiny overview of what the PSEP program is with CPA Ontario.
All right, hello everyone. My name's Kyle, and I'm one of the CPA Board of Ambassadors reps here at Ontario Tech. Since you're all here at this event, I assume you all have an interest in accounting and finance. I'm here to promote the PSEP program, which helps students interested in accounting and finance prepare for their careers. So what is PSEP? PSEP stands for the Post-Secondary Ambassador Program. It helps students build their soft skills and expand their personal network through access to exclusive networking events and workshops. The membership fee to join is $10, but the benefits definitely outweigh the costs. I personally joined for the first time last year. PSEP helped me build my soft skills and actually land a full-time job for when I graduate, and it can do the same thing for you. Let's go to the next one. Perfect. And here are just a few of the events we have coming up. First up, we have the Slaying Your Taxes event coming on Wednesday, November 25th. This workshop will teach you about doing your personal taxes, and that's actually right in time for tax season coming up as well. We also have a time management workshop for those that would like to brush up on their time management skills ahead of exam season. And finally, applications for the Chartered for Finance conference are opening soon, and the event will be occurring January 22nd and 23rd. This event will give students the opportunity to learn about what CPAs do other than work in public accounting, which it turns out is actually a lot of things. I personally attended last year and honestly cannot recommend it enough. So what are you waiting for? Scan the QR code on your screen to register for PSAP today. If you have any questions about PSAP or the CPA, reach out to myself or Ilsa, who's my fellow Board of Ambassadors rep. All of our info is on the screen there. And also make sure you're following our social media to keep up to date with everything we're doing. Thank you all for your time, and I will pass it back to Hannah.
Okay, so now we're going to discuss some CFA Society information with Kurt and Hasty, who will be speaking for us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hasti Fifadra, and I'm one of the CFA student ambassadors for the CFA Society Toronto. I have my co-ambassador here, Kurt. Do you just want to say hi?
Hey, everyone.
Perfect. So we're just going to talk about the CFA Society really quickly for everyone who's interested in finance and the world of investing. If we can please go to the, yeah, that's good. So I just wanted to highlight why CFA Society is a global reaching one. So when you become a member of the local society, like the CFA Society Toronto, you will have access to events that are hosted and held by other local societies around the globe. So if we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so maybe you're bored of Canadian winters, or maybe you just want to live in Singapore or Hong Kong or London. CFA is basically your global passport, and it provides you the opportunity to actually live and work in any country if you have achieved your CFA designation. You do not have to rewrite another exam. That is your one-stop shop. And Financial Times actually has provided the CFA the title of the golden passport for finance industry. If we move to the next slide, thank you. All right, so why join the CFA Society Toronto? There are a gazillion reasons, but the main four are categorized on screen. So basically the speakers the society pulls in, they are incredible. They have industry connections, the skills that you learn, the connections that you make, as well as the opportunities that you take up. The CFA Society always brings in great speakers from the industry. From my personal experience, I was able to tune in to Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, where the CFA Society Toronto had organized an event. And joining him was Lynn Patterson. She was the former deputy governor for the Bank of Canada. And then not too long ago, we had David Nugent as a speaker, who was the chief investment officer of Wealthsimple. And they have tons of great workshops like financial modeling, Python, Power BI, etc. And if you're into getting some scholarships, CFA Society Toronto has 3 scholarships for third-year students and fourth-year students, so 6 in total, that you can apply for, and you do not have to be registered for the CFA program. So that's a great opportunity for everyone here, and the deadline's coming up soon on December 11th, so go check it out. And Kurt is able to just share some links into the chat box for everyone interested. And lastly, if we go to the next slide, please, thank you. So I would just like to say, if you're ready to take the leap and start your journey in the world of finance or investing, I highly recommend you click on the link that Kurt has sent in the chat box here. Yeah, there it is. So it says you are connect request at the end. So if you click on that and if you fill it out, please ensure to fill out mine and Kurt's name into the referral name. And then CFA Society will get you all the information right into your inbox. And for more information on CFA Society or our scholarships, as well as the Ontario Tech events, make sure to follow us on our social media platforms. And that's it for me. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you so much, Hasti, and thank you to Kurt. Now we're going to get into our panel. But first, we're going to introduce who our panelists are. And we just have little words about them. So our first one for the CFA side is Daniel Nieto. Daniel Nieto is the CEO and portfolio manager at Calsa Capital Management, a hedge fund specializing in quantitative trading strategies. Prior to Calsa, Daniel's experience ranged from tax structuring and risk management to software development and venture capital. Daniel is a CFA charter holder and holds the Chartered Investment Manager designation. He earned his Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Guelph and has studied at Harvard. And thank you for coming, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. Our next panelist for the evening is Farina. Farina is a senior manager of financial planning and analysis at Barrick Gold Corporation, which is one of the largest gold mining companies in the world. Prior to working with Barrick, Farina pursued her CA while working in KPMG's audit practice, specifically with clients from the energy and natural resource sector. In her time at KPMG, she also had the chance to gain international experience. Farina earned her Bachelor of Commerce in Finance and Accounting from Ryerson University, and she currently holds the CPA designation as well.
All right. Our next panelist is going to be Sean Huang. So Sean is the founder and CEO of 36 Paths, an online career accelerator that helps students land great finance jobs in Canada faster. Previously, he worked as product manager at Scotiabank and Overbond, which is a venture-based capital fintech startup. Prior to his fintech product career, Sean was part of the investment banking team at Cantor Fitzgerald and the capital markets group at Scotiabank. Sean completed the Masters of Management and Professional Accounting program at the University of Toronto, and he holds the CFA and the CPA designation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you as well.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you, Sean, as well. And finally, our last panelist for the evening might be a familiar face to some of you. Lovely Daniel Sardar is joining us here tonight. And after working in public accounting at PwC for over 4 years, Daniel left his experienced senior associate role to change organizations to the Office of the Auditor General of Ontario. Daniel Sardar is currently a senior auditor at the Auditor General's office, and he obtained his Bachelor of Commerce degree from Ontario Tech, so he is an alumni here. He actually was a previous president of the Accounting Association, so we're really excited to have you as well here, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so now we're going to get into the questions finally. This is why we're all here, is the panel discussion. So that's exciting. And our first question is actually going to be a general question. And Hannah, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, perfect. So our first question for the evening is a question for all 4 of our panelists. So feel free to, if you want to answer first, just hop on in. And if not, we'll see who is interested in answering. So our question is, why did you decide to pursue your CPA or CFA designation, or both in some cases? And do you think that it's contributed positively to your career?
I'll go ahead. I'll go first.
Perfect, thank you.
So I'm a CFA chartered holder, and the reason for, I guess, doing it was really twofold. At the time, I was working with clients who were CFA chartered holders, and they were buying securities and managing portfolios, and I just didn't really know what that world sort of entailed, and I wanted to understand more, and it seemed challenging. I think that was the first one. And then the second one, from a regulatory perspective, you actually require it in order to manage capital. There are other ways to go about it, but generally that's the preferred sort of method. And so those were the 2 primary reasons. In regards to whether it has been helpful or not, it has been tremendously helpful. And it's been one of those investments from a time perspective that continues to pay dividends over time.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you for that, Daniel.
I guess I can go next. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing your perspective. So I kind of knew really early on a designation was something I wanted to pursue. And what the CPA designation really does is it adds instant credibility to your personal brand. I know that when people look at my name or someone's looking to hire, they know that I've met the rigorous educational and practical requirements to not only earn my designation, but generate a lot of value for my clients. So really it's been an outstanding experience. I started off in public accounting at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and as I progressed to the firm, and I networked, I realized the true power of the CPA. I spent 3 years working for my CPA, and then after that, the CPA worked for me. So essentially, I got a call from the Auditor General's office, and they were looking for a consultant. And one of the skill sets that I learned being a CPA is that we're more than just numbers people, right? We are well-rounded business advisors. So I can actually look at a business from top to bottom, not just the financial side. Look at how operations are going. Do you produce something in-house? Do you outsource? What recommendations can you give on internal controls? So it was a whole journey, 3 years, and then after that, it's just a world of possibilities. And I think Husty mentioned this when she was talking about the CFA designation. The CPA designation does something very similar for you. It opens up global doors everywhere. I've had requests, in the States, even Europe, believe it or not, for interviews. So the point I'm making is it's a global designation. And I guess when I was coming up through the system, the saying was, it's a guide to ruling the world. I truly believe that now.
All right, I guess I can go after. So my name is Sean, and I actually have both CPA and CFA. The reason being that I was enrolled in the massive accounting program where CPA was just was a credit, so it was really easy for me to pass the CPA and all that, and I was able to kind of waive a lot of requirements. And I understand that accounting is super fundamental to understanding the business world, whether you want to pursue a career in finance or industry or run your own business. And that's what I recognize the importance of having that fundamental accounting knowledge, and pursuing CPA is sort of no-brainer for me at that point. But personally, I have always been slightly more interested in finance, just to be honest. And I want to pursue finance because I feel like it's forward-looking. It's really exciting where I love analyzing numbers and kind of creating insights from data analysis. Finance has so much to offer in terms of not only investment management, but investment banking, equity research, sales and trading, venture capital. It has that kind of the breadth of different sectors that you can pursue. And CFA is basically the gold standard if you think about it, right? So MBA will have different sort of qualification requirements depending on the schools you go to, but CFA is essentially consistent wherever you go. I think Hasti kind of mentioned that where you wanted to work in Hong Kong or Singapore or Africa or North America. I think Toronto is one of the largest and most condensed kind of CFA charter holder city, and I think it helps me tremendously in terms of my career growth because people understand what went into it, right? In terms of the rigor and all the work you put in, and you speak the same language where other CFA chart holders are speaking, and people understand that and people appreciate that. I think that helps you to definitely accelerate your career growth from both landing your first job to later on getting promoted, all the way to becoming executive or running a one business. So yeah, that's my perspective, being both CPA and CFA, I guess.
Amazing, thank you. And Farina, if you want to share as well.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. You guys have done an awesome job at this, so it's an honor to be amongst everyone here today. My story is there's nothing really fancy to it. I was in high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was invited to my business class. We went on a field trip to this conference, similar to what Daniel mentioned about CPAs, or CA at the time, rule the world and conquer the world. And I was like, okay. So I went to it, and the structure, the job security, and the combination of being able to analyze numbers, similar to what Sean had mentioned, I was like, okay, I'll do this. And what the whole rule of the world thing I didn't believe it. I just did something because I didn't know what else to do, like a lot of high school students. But I did fall in love with it. And what's amazing is, no, I didn't rule the world, but to what someone mentioned earlier, it's truly a passport. So I focused my area on mining. So for me, I was able to connect the geology side with finance, which is what's fascinating for me. And the testament to that is that I've lived in Australia I've lived in the Dominican Republic. I've had assignments in Argentina, Peru, the US. And that's just the start of it. Like, there's so much more that you can do. KPMG, for example, all the firms, when they were setting up their resource centers in India, a lot of them had opportunities out there. So it truly, truly is it's a passport that lets you, and I think this is the same for the CFA as well, that puts you in an uncomfortable situation and you have to figure it out. And that's what I love.
Very nice. Well, thank you for that answer. Thank you so much. And so that's amazing. Thank you, everyone, for the first question. The next one we have is actually a directed question for Daniel Nito. So, Daniel, with your experience in capital markets, equity strategies, and risk management, what made you want to create your own hedge fund, Calsa? And if you would like to go into what Calsa is, that would be great too.
Yeah, sure. So maybe taking a step back. So I was a hedge fund manager for a number of years, and the connecting tissue through my career has been technology. So I know how to program and all the way, they call it full stack. I was developing, in fact, artificial intelligence of traded public equities and derivatives at the hedge fund. And that plus operational experience that I gathered earlier in my career when I was an accountant enabled me to transition into venture capital. And when I was in venture capital, I saw this opportunity at the intersection of financial services and social. And to answer your question a little bit more specifically, when I was at the hedge fund, we were helping high net worth individuals, families, and institutions compound their capital above market rates. And I figured that, me being an immigrant and not having general access to these things earlier on in my career, I wanted to have a way by which to offer this to the common folk, if you will, or people that were just in my sort of vicinity. And so that's what inspired me to create Calsa Capital Management, which is to take all these quote unquote fancy alternative strategies and being able to offer them to people that are not necessarily accredited investors.
Well, thank you for that. And just a quick follow-up on that note, having experienced a variety of jobs that CFA charter holders have, what area of business was your favorite? Or in other words, like what was your favorite job besides, Calsa, and why is that?
So that's a good question. I think venture capital was probably sort of my favorite because it was a culmination of all the skills. So venture capital, what you're doing is trying to identify trends in businesses that are, taking part of that trend. And in doing so, you have to understand things like management as well as the operational fundamentals of those companies. And so you're applying a lot of the stuff that you learned in the CFA charter from a financial analysis perspective, but at the same time, you have to understand technology and the various components that would make it successful. And the combination of those two is, it's really exciting. And working with entrepreneurs and just people in that realm, it's incredibly exciting and just invigorating.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for that insight. That's incredible. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Daniel. So I'm now going to do a directed question for Farina. So considering your experience at KPMG and now Barrick Gold Corporation, what main differences do you see between public accounting practice that we're all used to hearing about and now that the industry that you're in?
Yeah, so I spent 7-ish years at KPMG and I've been at Barrick for about 4. There was a very noticeable difference. I actually remember thinking to myself, did I just make a mistake? Did I just ruin my career when I left? The answer is no, I don't feel that way anymore. But the firm is kind of like, it's a very, I don't mean to use the word cult in a negative way, but there's a camaraderie there. It's kind of like taking university, but then putting you guys or us into now a workplace. So you still have that group, that peer group. It's a different structure. You make some very, very good friends because a lot of the people are very like-minded to you. So when you go to industry, it's a different vibe from a demographic perspective. That's one thing. The same way that you hang out with your coworkers when you're on an audit, it's, for me at least, the experience in industry has been different. 2, the expertise. So when you're in the firm, you have access to a global network of experts in like the most niche topic you could imagine. And that's phenomenal. Going into industry, you are now the expert, which is daunting, but also provides a really, really good learning experience. So I think those are the two big things. And the last one I'll say, it's at the firm, you get a taste of what's happening in different businesses, which is beautiful. But in industry, you realize that you now get full access to all of the information, because you obviously don't provide the auditors with everything. It's what they need to know. And it's really awesome being on the other side of it. For example, at Barrick, we've been trying to build a mine up in the Andes on the border of Argentina and Chile. The project got shut down because we allegedly had a plan to bulldoze some glaciers, so the environmental authority shut us down. How do we fix that? We want to be able to move rock from one city to another, so do we build a railway? What type of drilling do we do? So these aren't things you're going to get exposure to necessarily in the firm, but that's one of the positive sides of it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That was fantastic insight.
That's right. And so our next question, which is also specific for Sean. So Sean, in your opinion, what is the biggest misconception an aspiring CFA, CPA, or MBA student may have about their career path? And what advice would you give students aspiring to achieve these designations and degrees?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are quite a few misconceptions. I think the biggest one being that people feel like they're always under the peer pressure to get this, as many designations as possible, without understanding why they should go and get it, right? I think a lot of people just, maybe saw their peers or their friends pursuing CPA and CFA, and they feel like they are under the peer pressure to pursue it as well. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen. I think figuring out, kind of taking a step back and figuring out where do you want your career to go to, and what is required, or what is something that will help you get there, whether it's a CPA or CFA or both, or MBA, or maybe a international internship or something like that, right? So I think I see the designation as sort of a means to an end. You got to figure out where your career goal is, and then you wanted to assemble the necessary kind of pieces in order to help you get there. If you're very interesting, let's say, investment management, then I think CFA is probably a better fit compared to CPA. However, if you're interested in more of a financial planning and analysis, you wanted to start your career with a big four accounting firm, then obviously CPA would be more of a better fit there. Of course, you can pursue both, like what I did. And to be frank, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do either. So one of the advice I would give to people who want to pursue or achieve those designations is to take a step back and talk to as many people as possible, right? Like attend networking events like this, where you can get insights or hear some, I guess, seasoned or just folks who are a few years ahead of you, right? Listen to their experience and see if that's something I want to do, and then evaluate whether CPA or CFA or both make more sense for yourself. So I think, I encourage people to do more networking, talking to and be creative in the process, right? Trying to figure out, maybe it's your brothers, your sister, your cousins, or maybe your alumni, or could be your professor's recommendation. There are a lot of different Toronto is a small world, and Canada is small, and you can always find connections that will be able to provide insights to you to help you to make career decisions or designation decisions. So I think people kind of overvalue the coursework component and undervalue the networking component. I think despite networking being talked a lot, I think it's still undervalued, and I think people should do more of it, especially early on during your time during your undergrad or master's, whatever, and continue to do that once you start your career. I think that's something that will be really helpful for your career.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Really quick, whoever asked that question, we'll get to it after. I would just know that we will get to it. And Sean, I could really relate to that answer, by the way, just because I felt the same way so many different times. Like having people talk about what they're doing kind of boxes you, and you just need to go out and get as much knowledge. So on that note, much like Daniel, you've also taken the entrepreneurial entrepreneurial route and created your own company, 36 Paths.
Right.
What is 36 Paths? Please discuss it, and what made you want to start it?
Yeah, so 36 Paths is essentially an online career development platform that helps university students and recent grads and to help them to land jobs in the financial service industry. It wasn't something that, purposefully planned for, to be honest. I started off as a side project where I was still working full time. But it just got reached out on LinkedIn or over emails many times through just people reaching out and asking, okay, how did you get into investment banking as an international student? I was an international student 8 years ago when I first came to Canada, so it was quite rare for an international student to get into investment banking or capital markets. So people were trying to seek my expertise and insights. It got to a point where I just couldn't handle the volume, so I decided maybe there's a business out of it. So I just decided to create a landing page. And it just slowly grew from there. Got to a point where I was able to quit my full-time job at Scotiabank and devote this to 36 Paths full time. And it's fun. I think a lot of you guys probably are entrepreneurial as well. I think I encourage people to kind of take that entrepreneurial plunge if the financial situation or whatever your risk taking willingness, it makes sense. And I think I learned a ton about running business, whether it's finance, sales, operations, and yeah. So what's the second part of the question again? What made you to want to start it? Yeah. So on that part, I think it was just when I was starting my career, I got so much help from a lot of experienced folks, and I wanted to kind of pay back and I wanted to kind of structure it in a better way and provide help to a lot of those, I guess, underdogs, those who are not in target programs like Ivy or Rotman or Schulich, and a lot of those international students and recent immigrants, right? So, and those guys don't have the connections and knowledge to kind of pursue the career they wanted to, and I wanted to basically help them out. And yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Sean. That was very incredible insight. So we're going to pass off to our final directed question for Daniel Sardar. I know we have two Daniels in here, so it might be a little bit confusing. But so as an Ontario Tech alumni, or UOIT as it used to be, I would love to hear you talk about how you feel like Ontario Tech prepared you for your CPA designation, Daniel.
That's a great question. And before I answer, I just want to thank Daniel, Farina, and Sean for their time as well, because I'm getting some great insight out of their discussion. So thank you for sharing your experiences. It's really humbling to be here with you. So the question about UOIT and how well it prepared me. So the first 2 years at UOIT, I guess you're trying to make up your mind, what major do you want to pursue? And then you have this big presentation from the professors and the faculty, and they tell you the accounting profession is rewarding, it's lucrative, it's challenging. The one thing they make very clear really early on is it's very rigorous. If you're going to go pursue this major at the school, it's going to be long nights, tough exams, but the whole point of this is to prepare you for what's to come. And I can tell you, I did not enjoy my third-year tax classes, intermediate accounting, Professor Jones's, everything. But it's those exams and the lectures that made me, instilled a better work ethic. It was the ability to kind of tough through, and just grind out exams and study material. So when I do get to the professional level, I have the skill set and the study habits to tackle the CPA exams. Another reason why I feel a lot of our alumni are successful in their CPA exams is the faculty. I am a very proud Ontario Tech alumni, and we have faculty that come to my office, Auditor General's office, and they give lectures on public standards updates, new accounting templates. Professor Jane Bowen, she's very involved with the profession as well. In fact, she's an FCPA, which is really the pinnacle of the CPA designation. So you have an outstanding faculty at Ontario Tech, which I can put up there with any university in Ontario. So, because of, their mentorship, their guidance, They always push their students to do well, and because of the rigor of the exams and networking with the professors, I feel like I had the skill set developed, so that when I did get to the firm, and by the way, your first year at the firm, it's going to be your worst, because you're not only working full time, doing audits, but the expectation is you're passing your CPA exams simultaneously. So you need to have that work ethic built in order to succeed in both facets of that life. And I'm proud to say the peers that I graduated with, we had incredibly high pass rates, and that's because of the program that you guys have in place.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry to cut you off there. I just wanted to kind of build on what Sean and Daniel just said there, on the networking piece of it. So I'm an introvert. I do not like talking to strangers. I didn't like it in university, and I still don't like it now. But networking, as was mentioned, it's something that's very, very necessary for this career or for this field. And you just have to do it. And you'll be rejected, you'll be ignored. I was rejected, I was ignored. But you really just have to put yourself out there, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. I love talking to people. It's just that initial reaching out to someone that you don't know, that's more senior, you're kind of like, should I be doing this? So I really, really encourage you right now, if you haven't already, have conversations, reach out to people. And you might be saying, well, we're in a pandemic. Virtual calls, have at least one per week. So I urge you to do the same thing. And just to give you a quick, give you a bit of context, the reason I'm even here is I have no connection to this school. What it was that my cousin actually was a student here, and I think she had reached out to me when she was about to graduate, just asking for some tips. And I was like, you were taking accounting this whole time? I didn't realize that we could have had a conversation, but she didn't want to reach out. So it's that whole thing of, I don't want to bother this person, and no, don't do it, because chances are the person on the other end does want to help and does want to return and pay it forward. Anyways, so I then decided I wanted to get some experience doing some lecturing. So I reached out to her, and I got connected with Professor Jane Bowen, who Daniel mentioned. So I actually did a lecture for a class that Kyle was in, and that's how he then reached out to me. So I know that sounds convoluted, but that is how the chain works. And the only way you're going to eventually perhaps benefit from it is if you put yourself out there. So I urge you to put yourself out there and prepare for conversations, let it flow, but go into those conversations, with a bit of background and a bit of research on who it is you're speaking to. But if the conversation becomes informal, embrace it. I know it's nerve-wracking, but embrace it. So just wanted to add that on.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was a nice piece of a nice add-on to that. So thank you so much. So,
sorry, that was fantastic. I'm glad that you were able to add in the importance of networking, and I'm sure that for everyone here who hasn't had a lot of opportunity to network, it's a little bit hard with COVID, but like you said, you can network with people across the globe just by Google Meeting them, right? And then I'd like to touch base on the fantastic faculty we have here on Ontario Tech. One of my highlights is when I reach out to alumni and they know who Friedland, Jones, and Bowen are because they've all been here for so long. So just another follow-up to Daniel's question. So what is the most important skill that you developed in your early career? I know you started at PwC, and how do you think that skill has helped you in your senior auditor position?
That's a good question, Hannah. And I did not know Farina was a quasi-faculty, so welcome. I'm really happy to hear that. So I think one of the first things is just having a good attitude. When you start off your career, everything is kind of new to you. It's really abrupt. You don't know how to work, how to document, how to work on a working paper. You're not comfortable asking questions, not just your team, but the client who you're auditing, right? So having a good attitude is imperative, in that you are going to make mistakes your first year. You are going to get feedback from people that are your seniors, your senior associates or accountants, the managers, maybe even partners, right? And it's very easy to just kind of lose all hope and feel like I'm not cut out for this. I encourage you to make mistakes and put forth a good, honest effort, because that will never go to waste. The other tip that helped me is just be inquisitive. Be genuinely curious about what it is that you're doing. One of the reasons why CPAs are so in demand, especially when they're exiting the firm, it's their ability to add value to a client, to a firm, to a project, an operation, synergies, whatever you. So, it's my ability to take a product, and my professional goal is to find something and leave it in a better state than I found it. So that's a skill set that I developed at the firm, looking at a working paper from a prior year, understanding what was the testing, for instance, that was completed, and how can I make this more clear? How can I make this more efficient? And that kind of progressed to my next role with the Auditor General's office, and that, the way we're trained at the firm, we're trained really differently than other CPA training offices. So my goal is to, again, go through the working papers and make sure, is it clear? Is it concise? Can I coach someone through this? Because, part of my job is also quality control and coaching of junior associates. So, having a good attitude and being really inquisitive about the stuff you're working on, I think are two skill sets that have helped me greatly.
Well, thank you so much for that input. Thank you so much. And now we'll get to our second general question for the night, which is, and this is, you can be a bit silly with this one if you choose. So if you had the power to go back in time and start from the very beginning of your professional career, what would you do differently? So this is a general question, so whoever would like to answer first may do so.
I'll take it again.
Okay,
I wish I would have started coding earlier. It's a skill that not only does it has tangible value in the sense that you can build stuff, but most importantly, it really teaches you how to think programmatically and how to break problems into structures and build out logic sets that allow you to go through any type of situation in a systematic manner. And it's something that it's not widely known. I think the statistic is something like there's only really around 500,000 programmers in the world or something like that. So if you kind of scale that out to a population of 7.5 billion people, it kind of goes to show the room for growth. And so, I mean, I can tell you that I'm a father, and that's the one thing I'm like trying to get my kid to do, code.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you. Next speaker.
I'll go. So I wouldn't use the word regret or anything like that, because I do believe that everything is written. But there are two things that I look back on. One is I was so theoretical and focused on the academics that I didn't know what was going on in the real world. I was barely aware of the GFC as I was studying about it, right? So I think, yes, don't forget to obviously prioritize the theoretical and the academics that are in your textbooks, but I would definitely suggest to tap into the real world and apply what it is that you're learning to the real world, appreciating that you're going to see words like hedge fund and derivative and put and forward and depreciation, and you're not going to get a lot of it, but that's okay. And two things I would suggest. One, I subscribe to the MSNBC Morning Squawk. It's a free email, and it's a quick summary of what's happening in the day. Super concise. My attention span is not the greatest, so I just wake up and scroll it, and I kind of have a sense of what's happening in the markets, politically, as it could relate to the economy. So that's one that I really enjoy. And two, The Economist. If you have Spotify, which I'm sure a lot of you do, The Economist is also has a free podcast, and they do very, very interesting articles. I listened to one the other day about negative carbon and technology that can suck carbon out of the air and convert it to something else. But again, there's always parallels to the business world. So that's thing one. Thing two is confidence. I think a lot of the time, I don't know if you guys, if you're in class and the teacher asks or the professor asks for the answer and someone else says it and you're like, oh, I put my hand up. I knew that. So that can happen in meetings in the workplace as well. And I think going into the work environment, just to echo a little bit of what Daniel said, it is daunting going to the work environment. Also, even though, you know, we live in Toronto and it is 2020, it is still very a white male dominant work environment that we go into, especially at the senior level. So especially for those that may be first generation, you know, you have a voice as well, and use that voice, gain your confidence and speak up, because it can be daunting going into that environment. So again, just don't doubt yourself, and it's okay if you make mistakes. That's how you learn from it. So those are the two things I would say.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for that input. And then Daniel or Sean?
Sure, I guess I can go. First, I'm going to echo Farina's sentiment about networking or lack of networking. I guess when you get to your goal, which may be a public accounting firm, industry, wherever, I feel like people stop networking altogether. And one thing I wish, if I could go back, is even at the firm, there's so many people you can connect with and learn from. And this becomes very evident is when you've had enough of audit and you're just looking to leave. But then if you look around, there's, you know, at these large accounting firms, they have opportunities in consulting. They have very diverse tax opportunities for private clients, high net worth individuals. So you never really know what your calling is going to be unless you network and take full advantage of your resources. Second thing is time off. The first year at the firm, you're writing your exams, and pretty much most of my vacation was used up in studying for exams. In my second and third years, I wish I took some more time off, unpaid time off, because after a long busy season, it does take a toll on you mentally. And if you are in a non-peak period, you can certainly talk to your manager and request some extended time off, and that really helps the healing process and recharges the battery for a whole other cycle of year-end audits. And third thing is, I did not know this, but I'm actually based out of the Oakville office, or sorry, I was based out of the Oakville office for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they actually had a lot of partnerships with clients for common opportunities. So they would send associates, into payrolls, controllership, if there was a need with the client. I wish I took more advantage of that, talk to, my coach or whoever it is who's supposed to be guiding me to ask if there are opportunities to kind of test what's out there, because I think someone may have mentioned this. Leaving the firm is really scary because that's all you know. That's like your safety net. That's your personal brand right there. And if you make the wrong step, it's unfortunate. It's hard to recover from it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard. That is a way for you to test like a dry run at what the industry could look like and feel like, and see if that's something you want to pursue while still having your full-time employment with the firm. So those are some of the things I would encourage you guys to look into.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And last but certainly not least, Sean.
Yeah, so I think those are the great advice for you guys, for the students. But if I may, I will probably emphasize again on networking, even though I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think I want to emphasize again how important networking will be to your career, regardless at which point of your career you're in right now. And I strongly encourage you to kind of just be intellectually curious and open-minded. Just because you're in an accounting program doesn't mean you have to be accountant. You could be a computer program, you could be an investment banker, you could be an entrepreneur, right? Don't let your major define you. Always be curious and be open-minded, and try to explore as much as you can, right? Talk to people, go to events, let your, follow your heart. I think early on in my career, I feel like I didn't follow my heart as much. I feel like I was in an accounting program. I should have pursued, accounting and then maybe finance or whatever, right? I think let really follow your heart, and don't kind of give into peer pressure or what society defines a typical accounting or finance student should be doing. Follow your heart, but networking, I think certainly is helpful because it gives you a lot of data points, right? It gives you a lot of perspectives. And once you reach a certain number of meetings and talking to a certain number of people from diverse background, you kind of will be able to see a pattern, and that will be something that you can use as sort of insights to help you drive your decision making around, okay, do I want to do accounting, or do I want to do finance, or do I want to, do my MBA at some point, right? So those are the things I think I would do more of. If I can go back in time, I'll probably do more networking, and network with not just, within that accounting finance. It could be, technology, venture capital, something that's a bit of outside of your typical accounting finance bubble. And another thing I would emphasize is, always do things that make you feel uncomfortable. I think a lot of people just fall into the comfortable career path. Oh, let's get a big four accounting firm, CPA, and then go to banking, and then private equity, right? And don't just like do what is most comfortable. Try to like challenge yourself a little bit. Try to kind of always step out of comfort zone. I feel like you learn the most and you get to experience the most. And I think looking back, I think it's really the experience that you have had that will be beneficial to your career later on. I think just try to get as much experience as possible, and don't just try to fall into a specific type or path. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people wanted to have a path because that feels secure, but feel it's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to feel you're not doing what other people think you'd be doing, but I think yourself the best, and always follow your heart.
Wow, absolutely fantastic advice from everybody. I'm sure I can speak for everybody here that you've learned a lot just from listening to these individuals speak. Absolutely fantastic. So for time-wise, we are going to wrap up this part of the evening. Thank you for everyone who answered questions, and I'm actually going to open it up for students to ask questions. I'm sure there are lots of questions on people's minds. So we will start with the question that was asked earlier. So either of the CFAs can answer this, but what does your day-to-day basis and what does work-life balance look like in the CFA career path? So either of the CFAs could take that. It's a question in the chat.
Sean, you want to take it?
Sure. So I think the question is about work-life balance.
Yes, like what does your typical day look like, and how is your work-life balance?
That's really hard to answer because it really depends on the place you work at. When I was working in investment banking, there's no work-life balance. I was working 95 hours a week on average, sometimes even more. So really, whenever there's a deal or you're basically have no sleep. When there's no deal, you're pitching, so you're still busy. And as a junior banker, you get to support your senior bankers with a lot of the analytical work, in terms of building models and putting together pitch books. It's a tremendous learning experience, but it's definitely not for everyone. Make sure that although the reason I left wasn't related to work-life balance, but I think if work-life balance is important to you, or perhaps you have some underlying health issues that prevent you from working extremely hard, then knowing that investment banking is not going to be the right fit for you. And at other places, I think at an early stage startup, fintech startup, you might be working a lot as well. Although that can depend, although that does vary based on the places you work at. But when I was working at Scotiabank in the corporate function as a product manager, that was your typical 9-to-5 job. The work-life balance is, I guess, is great, but it really depends on what you're looking for. I think you can optimize for work-life balance, or you can optimize for learning experience, which will put you in a good position to succeed, for the later part of your career, right? So if you optimize too much for work-life balance early on in your career, you might miss out on a lot of those opportunities and learning experiences that will put you in a good spot to be successful later on, right? So I think it really comes down to asking yourself the question, what is the most important to me? If you say, hey, I want to just start my family early, work-life balance is tremendously important to me, that's perfectly fine. I think you have to be honest with yourself, knowing what's important to you, because that ultimately only you can answer that question. And with knowing what's important to you, then you can kind of configure your life and your career and your career choices around that to make sure that you maximize your life and make sure everything is aligned with your preferences.
Yeah, if I could just add to what Sean said, and just taking it back to his previous comment about doing or pursuing something that is meaningful to you. Much like him, well, he was in iBanking at the hedge fund. I was working close to 100 hours a week now. The thing for me, though, was that I deeply believe in work-life integration rather than work-life balance. And just by way of example, literally as we're having this call, I was trading futures. And, you know, I think a lot of people know that saying, if you do what you love, you'll never have a job. And so if you pursue something that is meaningful to you and that it aligns with your values and the kind of thing that you like to do day to day, you know, the reality is that you'll probably find yourself doing it anyways. And so it's really hard to draw the line between where the quote unquote job begins and where it ends.
Wow, very insightful. That's exactly how everybody should kind of approach it seems, you know, just kind of have the, not quite the balance, but the integration. That's a good point. So on that note, actually, it's a pretty good question because everybody has a different answer, really. If you don't mind, the CPAs, the two of you, can you please also discuss, you know, your thoughts on like a day-to-day basis and the work-life balance, like how you kind of manage and handle that, if you don't mind? I guess Daniel can go first.
Sure.
Thank you.
Work-life balance really is what you make of it. I can tell you when I was at the public accounting firm. So the thing with private clients is, you know, all of our deadlines are not December 31st. I can have a client with a December 31st, Jan 31st, March, like April, you name it. It can be a busy season throughout the entire year if that's how the cards kind of unravel. You know, for me, it's, you know, you need to draw a line at some point because you do want to, you know, commit to work and you want to achieve and you want to excel. But at the same time, your mental health is so important. And you cannot be working 80, 90 hours a week for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks and not feel it. You get burned out. So, you know, that was one part of my life, external audit. And then I made a decision that I wanted to try something else. And I made the move to the Auditor General's office. And frankly, I can tell you I'm still working a lot of hours, but it's, now we have peaks and valleys, so to speak. Like I'll go really hard for 2 weeks and the next 4 weeks are going to be really easy for me. So it gives me a chance to kind of reinvigorate, you know, try something else on the side. Before the whole COVID thing happened, I think I touched on this a few weeks ago. I played on a trampoline dodgeball team with a whole bunch of my friends, and I could do that because my work allowed me to leave at a certain time and you know, meet that commitment as well. And you know, have some new hobbies too. You know, try something else that's therapeutic, that's different. I got a Kindle recently from Amazon. I was really skeptical of its use, but I really enjoy reading 30 minutes before going to bed every night. It calms me down and kind of takes my attention away from something that might be work related. So find something that works for you. Everyone's definition of work-life balance is very different, but I feel like it is possible.
All right, thank you for that.
So I could talk about work-life balance for a very, very long time, but I will keep it short. I think your first thing is honesty with yourself. When you know that you're feeling tired or your mental health is taking a toll, I think self-awareness is huge, which is kind of what everyone so far has said. Everyone's situation is different. For me, at the very start, especially at the firm, it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to grind just to kind of take advantage of any opportunities that I can get, build my name, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a slippery slope there, right? There's a slippery slope where you start associating your worth with how many hours you can put in. And I remember a partner said to me, it's not about working hard, it's about working smart. So space time, and I know we're in a bit of a different time right now where you're not physically in the office, but you would just see a lot of, you know, it was kind of like battle of like who's the real survivor, who can stay the longest. So there's a fine line between that. So I just caution you about that. But again, the hours, there is a lot of volume. And if you can change the way that we do something by using data analytics, that's a big thing that's being pushed, and get it done in half the time, you're super valuable. Also being in Australia, I did see a very, very different work culture. It was very work hard, play hard. So on a Friday, everyone is out at the bar. Whether or not you drank, it was just to be out in the sunshine. So that was another thing. Leaving the firm, part of the reason for leaving was just that desire to have work-life balance. But then I think it's how do you use that extra time you have, right? At the first, I was kind of like, what do I do with all this time? I'm not really sure what to do. But I think it's making sure that, you use that time productively to try to gain another skill if you can. I mean, everyone's situation is different. Maybe you have other commitments, but definitely think you want to use that time smartly if you do get more free time as a result of making the jump from firm to industry.
Thank you so much for touching base on that question, Rena and Daniel. So looking at the chat, I also see that Matt, you have your hand up. So we'll ask, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for the presentation. Matthew Trujillo here, third-year accounting student at Ontario Tech. I had this was more directed to Farina, but I guess maybe you guys have been impacted by this as well. What made you want to pursue your CA? Or for the rest of you, why wouldn't you pursue your CA? What stopped you from pursuing it?
Sorry, so what made me want to do my CA?
Yeah, was there something that did you need to have it done, or was it a personal thing?
Honestly, I went into it pretty blindly, to be honest. As a high school student, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wasn't good at science. But it was a conference that I had gone to, and it was urging people to go into the CA, and I got into the program. Well, the hard part was then once you're in the accounting program at university, how do you then get a job that will help you train for that CA? So honestly, I know that's not the greatest answer, but I just kind of fell into it. And then as I got familiar with the content throughout university, I very much so enjoyed it.
If I could just add to that really quick, I see a question in the chat box on how to get a role after school. So yeah, once you get in the major, that's outstanding, but what do you do with this now? So I remember recruiting is very competitive. You're not just competing with peers in this chat room right here, you're competing with students all across Ontario. One thing that I did that helped me stand apart was, I joined the Accounting Association. That really helped. Networking goes a long way, but I was also very active on social media. So one of the recruiters was a big basketball fan, and she always supported the Chicago Bulls for some reason, which still irks me to this day, because how could you live in Toronto and support another city? In any case, we used to trade jabs on Twitter all the time, we're gonna beat you and this and that. And from that, we developed a professional relationship. And when it came time to recruiting, I was one of the first names that she thought of from our school. Because we had that interaction and that social connection. So I encourage you to use that tool as well if you're looking for a role.
Thank you for that, Daniel. So adding on to that, I do see two questions in the chat about internships and job opportunities, like you just mentioned. I would love to hear the other panelists' advice for university students who are currently looking for either full-time jobs when they graduate or internships for the younger students. So any advice from the other panelists would be fantastic as well.
Sure. I just an extension of what Daniel just mentioned. And this is coming from a venture capital lens. But really it goes back to networking or just really creating a presence. And I can tell you that when we opened either full-time positions or internship positions at the venture capital firm, we would have 400, 500 applications at any point in time. And it's one thing to have 400, 500 applications of just paper CVs or emailed CVs, but we were having people send in videos, people send in their Musical.lys, this is before TikTok, doing all kinds of things to differentiate themselves. The people that ultimately really got those positions, especially on the internship side, were people that were, and I'm just sharing contextually over the past kind of 2 years, they would create content on YouTube around the companies that they like. And even though, they were still in school and stuff like that, they would tear down a company, their S1s. And so an S1 is the prospectus when a company goes public. And they would just showcase how they would go about analyzing that company. And it really provided us a sense of two things. One, they were actually passionate about this stuff, right? Because it takes time to do that. And two, they had the initiative to just figure it out. And what you'll find is that not everything is written down when you're starting out at a job, whether it's a large company or small company. You need to be resourceful. And so all of these various things, whether it was the YouTube content or whatever, it just showcased to us that these individuals were resourceful. And so that's one thing that I would share with everybody here on the call.
Yeah, so to add on to Daniel's point, I think just like you have to like really love it to do the actual work, right? Like if you're not interested in working for the VC firm, you're not going to spend 20 hours to create the videos, the content to get the job, right? So, really let your passion guide your effort, and your heart knows the best. And trust me, you got to just be really self-aware. Obviously have enough data points to be informed in terms of decision making, but ultimately you know yourself the best. I see so many people struggling because they're following other people's journey. They're like, oh, my friend went to Big Four, I need to go do that too. Like, no, you don't. You know yourself the best, and your strengths and weaknesses could be completely different. Just because investment banking sounds sexy or fancy, then I should go for it. Not necessarily, right? Really evaluate and sit down and look at the pros and cons. And if doing deals is really interests you, excites you, or helping companies raise capital is something that I'm really excited about, then go for it. But also understanding what you're signing up for in terms of long hours and perhaps not so great culture, right? So those are things you have to be mindful of. But just in terms of looking for opportunities, I think creating content, doing work beyond what's required in a job description, I think it's a good way for you to stand out. But also like keeping in mind of like different channels. People think about looking for jobs as like LinkedIn or Indeed, but there's Angelus, right? There are a ton of startups being created on a daily basis, and a lot of them need extra help, data analyst or financial analyst, right? Those are the where a lot of jobs are being posted, where they can be a bit more open-minded in terms of hiring process, and they might be open to take a second year, or first year, third year student, right? You got to be able to kind of put yourself out there. You can even co-email the CEO, a co-founder, the CFO, the co-founder, right? So those are unique ways for you to put yourself out there and really get their attention, right? You're not going to email Brian Porter, which is CEO of Scotiabank, and get his attention. Most likely not. But let's say 50 people, 25 people kind of startup or a smaller firm, they're constantly needing help. And if you can demonstrate your value through a really kind of short and sweet email, cold email, or ideally if you have a connection to introduce you, even better. But even a cold email, if you can demonstrate your value and what you can bring to the table, showcase that you have done a lot of research about the company and how you can add value and make impact, that's a good way for you to stand out from the competition and for you to get experience, right? So it's always the hardest, to get your first internship or first work experience. But you can be a little bit more open-minded if you're early on, you don't have a ton of experience. Any sort of startup experience might not be as attractive on paper, but it can provide you a lot of learning opportunities and kind of position you well for the later part of your career.
Thank you so much for that, Sean. Would either of the other two panelists like to have input on that question?
Just one very quick thing. To Daniel Nito, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly there, your last name, Nito? No.
It's all good, yeah.
Daniel N. He had mentioned getting to a point where, your work doesn't feel like work, and that's when you love it. I just wanted to quickly highlight that your starting point may not be there. Your first job you might not enjoy because you're vouching invoices or you're doing data entry. So I think it's a little bit of patience, passion, and know that you're going to have ups and downs. And not necessarily when you get to a point that you like it, you might not always be there. You might get bored. You might want to have other, you might have other career aspirations. So I just wanted to highlight that this journey is never ending, and there are ups and downs. Of course, the goal is to get to a place where the work doesn't feel like work, but getting there takes self-reflection, self-awareness, and you putting in the work as well, right? So just a quick point on that.
Thank you so much. So going to another question, because I know we are running out of time tonight, but I love that everyone has so many questions. Hasti, I see you have your virtual hand up. Is there a question you'd like to ask the panelists?
Yes, I do. So I have a question for Daniel. And I like to think of finance as an exotic profession because you can never learn everything finance has to offer. And that is exactly why everyone should join Finance Association, by the way, because we do wonderful events with investing, buy side, sell side, etc. So my question is, I'm almost towards graduating and I'm a finance major. All my courses, I've taken more than 12 finance courses during my university term. They're either equity-based or they're debt. They're like, we had one course in derivatives. So I actually came across an article that you had written, and very inspiring, by the way, how you got the idea from your sister's problem in investing, where she couldn't find a proper platform that she could understand. You talked about how not a lot of people know about hedge funds and they don't even understand what that is. So I was wondering, what would you suggest as a new graduate or soon to be graduate for myself and other people like myself, what sources of information or where to look for information? Because again, finance is never ending stream. You can never learn too much to be the best in finance because it's always changing and there's always so much to learn.
So it's a great question in the sense that you're completely right. So taking a step back, I was always extremely interested in the world of finance from the lens that I came from, which was I started out as an accountant, and I was servicing mutual funds and hedge fund clients. And just for context, this was right in 2008, right before the crisis. And I had clients that were putting on trades with credit default swaps and all kinds of exotic derivatives. And to be honest, nobody really understood how to price them at the accounting firm where I was. And it was incredibly intellectually challenging to understand these instruments. So long story short, I myself was always very sort of number and quantitative oriented. I started out in the journey, if you will, with the traditional Buffett, Benjamin Graham value investing side of things. But that led me to a road where I learned about a firm called Renaissance Technologies. And if you Google it, they are literally the most successful hedge fund of all times. They compound capital at around 80% per year since like 86, 87. But to the point, they don't have outside capital. The point I'm trying to make is that you have to figure out what are the areas of finance that you may be interested in. And for me, it was a journey of just reading and consuming as much content as I could, both from traditional media outlets, that would be Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Globe and Mail, and so forth, and just books. Like you see all those are not, I actually read those, right? And you find what you're passionate about. And like I mentioned, I actually deeply believe in work-life integration. And I think it comes as a function of figuring out those things that you like. And that isn't to say that, you know, my day to day, it's all like flowers and roses, right? Like they're like, you know, I'm registered with the OSC, and there's some things that I got to do every month from a regulatory perspective. You know, don't really like those things. They're more a little bit more admin in nature. But overall, if I can get 80% of the pie to be the stuff that I love, which is just to figure out how the world works, and how that translates into financial decisions, to me, right, that's incredibly rewarding. And so my answer to your question is try to expose yourself to as much content as you can and with as many people as you can. Go on Twitter, follow people that seem interesting, send them DMs, comment on the stuff that they're tweeting about, trying to understand the stuff that they're tweeting about. The great thing about today's world is this thing called Google. And I can tell you, I learned to program. I learned how to price credit default swaps in a world where I had not gotten my charter, right? I learned all this stuff through like books and Googling. And so the information is there, but you got to roll up your sleeves and obviously do the work and expose yourself to it.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And I'd just like to add to what Farina had said prior to, I cannot keep quiet. I do agree to Farina's empowerment comment for women. And I'm very glad that 2020 has brought this change and we have a female finance minister for our country, and hoping to see the female vice president for the United States for the coming year. And thank you so much, Farina. You have always shared all the information during this session, and it's been incredible. And yes, women of color are getting the executive and the leadership roles. I would like to believe so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hasti, for that question. Thank you, Daniel N., for answering it. So unfortunately, we are running out of time for the evening. So I want to respect the panelists' time because I know it might be busy season or you have deadlines. So we really do appreciate you coming out tonight. If you don't mind, I'd love if we had one last question. If anyone out there has any, maybe we could do one really quick and then we'll finish things up. And if not, that works too. Sure, yeah, Kyle asked for any book recommendations. We're all stuck inside with COVID, so if anyone has any book recommendations, feel free to pop those in.
No rules. Rule. Very cool, very cool.
I'm currently reading one called The Ascent of Money. It's a tough read, but it's basically giving you the history of finance. And I know that sounds super boring, but it's actually very interesting. It goes back to the 1400s, which again, I would never voluntarily read about, but they make it very, very fascinating. The links of how colonization, war, slavery tied into the birth of finance. And there's a bonus chapter on Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, and it's just to upgrade the book for current times. So Daniel, I don't know if you've read it and that's why you're smiling, but I do recommend The Ascent of Money.
Neil Ferguson. By the way, Farina, did you work with Davina at Bento? At some point? Did you work with Davina at Bento?
Yeah, she lives down the street from me.
Well, look at that. She's a good friend of mine.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Davina used to work at KPMG, so we work together there. And she's at a VC firm now.
Guess which one?
Oh, do you work with Davina?
I hired Davina.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. See, guys, networking.
She's awesome. She's a rock star.
Yeah, she has spoken very, very highly about, this is relevant to what we're saying, going from a traditional financial reporting CPA firm environment to literally having like mini clients with these different VCs and making different decisions for them and seeing what's important to each of the VC firms. So that's awesome. Small world.
Yeah.
That was the best moment I've ever seen. You guys just realized you have a mutual connection right here. That's awesome. So just closing off, so Aditya did ask if there's any software that anyone would recommend that you recommend that we learn. Does anyone have any software off the top of their heads that they could think of?
Yes, Python. Learn Python.
Okay.
I have one. I'm just at the beginning, so I can't speak to it. But if anyone's looking to get their Excel modeling, there's a free course from, I'll type it in the box, Model Off. It's Model Off Grid Lines, and they're doing a free financial modeling course because of Corona. They're normally very expensive. I don't know if anyone, any of the other panelists have tried that, but anyone who's looking to do financial modeling in Excel, that becomes important later on. So I'll put the link in the box.
Yeah, I would say just master Excel. If you're interested in finance and accounting, definitely master Excel and slides and PowerPoint for sure. But that's your basis. And after that, I think sky's the limit. Tableau and Power BI are good tools for, kind of data visualization. If you're, into programming or that kind of piques your interest, Python or JavaScript would be great. Again, just follow your heart. But I think it's less important about the specific software and tool. It's more about do you have the willingness to learn and put yourself, and put the efforts in. And it really depends on the role. But yeah, I think regardless of which role, Excel and PowerPoint obviously must have, and you have to be really proficient in it.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm sure everyone here at Ontario Tech is having flashbacks to our Excel class in first year. But thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We are coming to the end of our time here. We really appreciate the panelists for taking time out of their Monday evening to really educate the students. I'm sure that I can speak for everybody that you've learned a lot from listening to these individuals speak. I'm sure you can probably connect with them on LinkedIn. If you have any additional questions, they might be opening to answering them. But thank you everyone for coming. And if anyone wants to stick around and maybe have last final comments or anything, feel free to do so. But everyone is good to go and finish all your case assignments that I know everybody has.
Yeah, everyone, thank you so much for your time. We all really appreciate it, and this is why we do it, So you're why we're here. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, guys. Take care.
Great
Have a
job,
good
guys.
day, Daniel.
Keep it up.
All right, yeah, everyone's free to go, but thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel, so much for coming so last minute. Super appreciated.
Anytime, man, no problem. I'm just reading the chat box here.
Yes, all the thank yous are coming in.
Oh, Hannah, are you able to take a quick screenshot for our LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this event is being recorded, so I can go back into the video and take all the screenshots I want. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, have a good night then.
Yeah, you too, Daniel. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I'll be right back. I just gotta take a phone call. 1 second.
Okay, no worries. And if anyone has any questions for any of the executive team, we're all sitting here. If anyone's looking for internships, you can reach out to me. I can try to help connect you. And other than that, have a good night. I have a meeting at 8. So. Okay, it's just the gang left. How did it go, guys? Oh, I gotta stop recording. Hold on.